In this video, we're going to look into other concepts about conics, such as the types of conics and the translation of axes. So, kung matatandaan natin, we classify conics as either a non-degenerate or a degenerate conic. If you remember during the lecture regarding the introduction to conics, if the cutting plane passes through the vertex of the cone, then it's a degenerate conic. Otherwise, it's a non-degenerate conic. And again, we have three types of non-degenerate conics. You have your ellipse, and an ellipse whose foci coincides with the center is a circle. Then we have your hyperbola and parabola. Sa non-degenerate conics naman, we have your point, the non-degenerate conic of an ellipse, a line, the non-degenerate conic of a parabola, and two intersecting lines, the non-degenerate conic of a hyperbola. We've showed how this happens geometrically, but how can we determine it using the equations? So, again, if we recall, the equation of the general's second degree equation is represented by ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0. That's the general second degree equation. Kapag yung b is equal to 0, then we say that it is an equation rather of a conic section. But actually, even if b is not equal to 0, if b is present, then it can still be a conic. This bxy would sometimes represent a distortion or a change in the axis that is beyond the scope of our subject. So as long as we have this second degree equation, and as long as a, b, and c are not all 0, then it can represent a conic. Now, since this is a general second degree equation, we can link it to the concept of a discriminant. If you remember in algebra, the discriminant of a quadratic equation tells us the nature of the roots of the parabola of your quadratic equation. In general, the general second degree equation, delta, represents this long expression, f multiplied to the binomial 4ac minus b squared plus bde minus ae squared minus cd squared is the discriminant of your second degree equation. If the discriminant is not equal to 0, then the second degree equation represents a non-degenerate conic. Otherwise, if the discriminant is equal to 0, then it represents a degenerate conic. From there, pwede pa nating malaman kung anong klaseng degenerate or non-degenerate conic ang meron depending on the expression b squared minus 4ac. This is what is more familiar to others as the discriminant for quadratic equations. Now, if b squared minus 4ac is negative, which is less than 0, and the discriminant is not equal to 0, then the equation represents an ellipse. However, if the discriminant is equal to 0 and b squared minus 4ac comes out as negative, then the equation actually does represent a point. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then it represents the parabola if the equation has a discriminant not equal to 0. But if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0 and even the discriminant is equal to 0, then that equation just represents a line. If b squared minus 4ac is positive and the discriminant is non-zero, then it's a hyperbola. But once the discriminant is positive, greater than or equal to 0, but the discriminant is equal to 0, then it is just an equation that represents two intersecting lines. So let's try with these equations here. Given these equations, let's determine what type of, whether it's a degenerate or a non-degenerate conic, and then let's describe the type of conic that we have. So for number 1, we have, let's start from here, we have x squared minus 2xy minus 4x minus 8y squared. Oh wait, I think it's better if we show the table above. Let's just fix this. Yeah. para kita yung table. So in number 1, we have x squared minus 2xy plus 4x minus 8y squared plus 2y plus 3 equals 0. So the first thing to do is to make sure that it is written in the general form, ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus dy plus f equals 0. As you can see, kailangan natin pagpalitan ng pwesto yan to follow the arrangement in general form. Hence, we have x squared minus 2xy minus 8y squared plus 4x plus 2y plus 3 equals 0. Now, hindi kagaya before that we just have to compare A and C to determine what type of conic it is. This time, because of the presence of B, hindi na naa-apply yun. We now have to apply the discriminant and B squared minus 4AC. So, since we have written this in this order, so this is A, B, C, D, E, and F. So first, we have to find the discriminant. Again, the formula for the discriminant is discriminant delta is equal to F times 4AC minus B squared plus BTE minus AE squared minus CD squared. So, all we need to do is just plug in the values. We're going to have, that's 3 times 4 times A, which is 1, times it, that's negative 8, minus negative 2 squared, plus negative 2 times 4 times 2, minus 1 times 2 squared, minus negative 8 times 4 squared. We just have to evaluate this long expression here. So we're going to have that's 3 times, evaluate natin yung nasa loob, we're going to have 8 times 4 times 1, that's negative 32, minus negative 2 squared, which is 4. Then we have negative 2 times 4 times 2, that'll be plus negative 16. This becomes minus 1 times 2 squared, which is 4. Then this becomes minus, that's 16 times 8, which is 100, negative 120. So we're going to have negative 32 minus 4. It's negative 36. This is 3 times negative 36 minus 16 minus 4 plus 120. Simplifying. 3 times negative 36 gives us negative 108 minus 16 minus 4 plus 128. This, pag pinagsama, becomes negative 20. So that's negative 108 minus 20 plus 128. Is actually equal to negative 128 plus 128. And therefore, this is equal to 0. Yun. Ito na ba lang? Since it's equal now to 0, the discriminant is now equal to 0. Therefore, at this point, we can say that this equation represents a degenerate conic. Degenerate conic. Now, we just have to figure out anong klaseng degenerate conic yan. So, to determine, we have to use now b squared minus 4ac. And to do that, b squared, that's negative 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 8. So therefore, we're going to have here that's 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 8. It is actually 4 plus 32, which becomes 36. And since 36, b squared minus 4ac is equal to 36, which is greater than 0, this means, or this implies that this equation actually represents two intersecting lines. Kasi yun ang nasunod dito. b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, and the discriminant is equal to 0. So therefore, the equation, the given equation represents a degenerate conic, specifically two intersecting lines. There you go. Now, try to answer number 2 on your own. Pause the video for a while and then try to solve to determine what kind of conic, what type of conic it is, and according whether it's degenerate or non-degenerate, then determine the type using p squared minus 4ac. Alright, so I'm going to assume that you did pause the video and then try it out. So let's see what we're going to have. So this is number 2, that's 3x squared minus 4xy minus 16x plus 8y plus 9 equals 0. So if we're going to take a look at the values, we have a, we have b, but there's no y squared. So this tells us that c is equal to 0. So this is d, this is e, and this is f. So yun ang ilalagay natin. So to find the discriminant, once again, the formula for the discriminant is the long formula f times 4ac minus b squared plus bde minus a e squared minus c d squared. So let's plug in the values. We're going to have 9 times 4 times 3 times 0 minus negative 4 squared plus, that's negative 4 times negative 16 times 8 minus, minus 3a, e, that's 8 squared, minus c, which is 0 times, this should be e. So this one should, 8. d is 16, 0 times negative 16 squared. So I'm going to leave the manual computation to you, and this value will give us 176. And this is not equal to 0. The discriminant is not equal to 0. Therefore, this is a non-degenerate conic. And since this is a non-degenerate conic, let's now determine what specific type of conic this would be. Although sa unang tingin, since there's no y squared, someone would say parabola. But we need to double check using b squared minus 4bc. So b squared, we have that's negative 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is t, times c, which is equal to 0. Therefore, we're going to have the value of this, I'll leave the computation to you, would be 16. So b squared minus 4ac is equal to 16, which is greater than 0. And it's not a parabola. It's a hyperbola here. Therefore, the equation 3x minus 4xy minus 16x plus 8y plus 9 equals 0 is a non-degenerate conic, and specifically, it talks about a hyperbola. Alright, so another process, or another concept rather related to conics is what we call the translation of axes. Now, we have actually been encountering it when we were discussing starting circles on the hyperbola. First, we have what we call the transformation of coordinates, which is the process of changing a pair of axes. Say, for example, we have the following Cartesian plane here. Let's change it to that first. We have the following Cartesian plane here. Then this is obviously our x-axis and our y-axis. Now, if there will be any changes in the Cartesian plane, such as, for example, pwede siyang na-move, that it will now look like this. So, the origin moved from here to here. Or, pwede rin naman na ang nangyari, from the original black coordinate axis, nagrotate, oops, let's move the screen, nagrotate in this red. Pwede rin naman, no, what happened is that your y-axis rotated some degrees to here and the x-axis rotated some degrees here. If that, whatever the changes that we're showing, that is what we call the transformation of coordinates. And the resulting equation from these transformations is what we call a transform equation. Now, the one in blue, let's hide the one in red. There you go. The one in blue wherein the origin is changed from its place to a new position. And the axes are parallel to the original axis, then that is what we call a translation of axis. Not like the red one a while ago, which is the translation is rotated. Ito, we just moved the origin somewhere else, but the x and y axis are still parallel to the original one. This is where HK comes in. Why? Say for example, we have this point here, this point P with coordinates xy, and if we have the new origin, let's say O prime at HK, then that means the movement now would be based from HK. So the new coordinates of this point P, naming it P prime, would be the change from x to the new coordinates in the new coordinate system. So itong dot na to, this point here, not dot, but this point here, would now have a new coordinates based now from HK. So the changes from the original one to HK, which is usually represented by x prime and then y prime, would be written as follows. X prime will then be x minus h. Just like what we do kapag pinapalitan natin yung center or the vertex in case of the parabola, the center for circle, hyperbola, and ellipse, and the vertex for the parabola. So similarly, y prime is equal to y minus k. So that's the concept rather behind the translation of axis. X prime is equal to x minus h, y prime is equal to y minus k. Let's have some specific examples. For example, in number 1, we are asked to find the new coordinates of the point P with coordinates 4, -6 if the axes are translated to the new origin, O prime, let's just write instead O prime. So O prime is -5, 2. So like what we mentioned, the formula for the new x coordinate or the new abscissa would be x minus h, and the formula for the new coordinate would be y minus k. Now, since this is the new origin, this is h and this is k. So to find the new abscissa, we're going to have that's x minus h, 4 minus -5. For the new ordinate, that's y, that's -6 minus 2. Therefore, the new abscissa will be equal to 9, 4 minus -5, and the new ordinate will be equal to -8. Therefore, P prime, or the new coordinates of point P with the new center, would be at 9, -8. So there you go. Now, let's make it a bit more complex. We are asked now to translate the axis so that no first degree term will appear in the transform equation of the circle x squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 10y plus 12 equals 0. Now, since we are told in number 2 that this equation plus 12 equals 0, we are told that there should be no first degree term here. We have to find a way na para maalis yan. Now, if you're going to check the equation, it doesn't have bxy term, so we can say that this is an equation of a conic section. And seeing that a is equal to c because they're both equal to 1, this is a circle. And we know that usually the first degree terms x and y are not on the general form if the center of the circle is at the origin 0, 0. So that's one thing that we have to bear in mind. The center should be at the origin. At the origin. So there you go. So now, we have to find, because it says translate the axis, now we would have to find a way to put the origin, the old origin, at the center of this circle. Kapag nahanap natin ang center ng circle na to, at dun natin nilagay yung origin ng bagong axis, then we will not have first degree term. Because the center of the circle is at the new origin. So to do that, let's find the center of the circle. Since this is a circle, we can easily find the coordinates of the center given that h is equal to negative d over 2a and k is equal to negative e over 2a in a circle. So therefore, this will become negative 6 over 2 times 1, while k will be equal to negative of negative 10 times 2 times 1. This becomes negative 3, and this becomes 5. So, therefore, we say that the center of the circle is at negative 3, 5. So, dahil yan ang center, negative 3, 5, we now have to transfer or to translate, the proper word is translate now the axis from 0, 0 to negative 3, 5. Once we do that, the circle will not have any more a vertex not on the center, on the origin rather. The first degree terms will be out. So, therefore, to translate the axis, the new origin must be, let's just read this. Therefore, the new origin is at negative 3, 5. That's what we mean when we say translate the axis. We need to find the new origin. Now let's look at number 3. We are asked to find the new equation of the circle x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 6y plus 9 equals 0. We are asked to find the new equation of the circle if the axes are translated to the new origin at 4, negative 3. So, if the new origin is at 4, negative 3, then we just need to use the formula that x prime is equal to x minus h and y prime is equal to y minus k. Applying this here, eto yun, x prime would be equal to x minus 4 and y prime would be equal to y, that's minus negative 3, so which would be equal to y plus 3. So then, all we need to do is substitute the values of x and y in the equation to x prime and to y prime since we're looking for a new equation. So first, we have to transpose. So therefore, x would be equal to x prime plus 4 and y would be equal to y prime minus 3. That's what we'll substitute on the equation. So we're going to have that's x prime plus 4 squared plus y prime minus 3 squared minus 8 times x prime plus 4 plus 6 times y prime minus 3 plus 9 equals 0. So let's expand and then simplify. Expanding this, we're going to have x prime squared plus 8x prime plus 16. The other one will be that's plus y prime squared minus 6y prime plus 9. Then, if we distribute these ones here, we're going to have negative 8x prime minus 32. Then we're going to have plus 6y prime minus 18 plus 9 equals 0. Simplify by combining like terms. Wala namang ka-like term ang x prime squared, so this becomes x prime squared. Negative 8x prime minus 8x prime, this gets cancelled. So we have now 16 plus 9 minus 18 plus 9, and that would be equal to 16, because that will be 9 plus 9, 18 minus 18. So this is cancelled, so we will get plus 16. Y prime squared, no common, no like term, so that's just plus y prime squared. Negative 6y plus 6y, this gets cancelled also. Then, we have still 32 here. Wait a minute, let's check this. Because of this minus 32, 16 minus 32 is negative 16. So, minus equals 0. There you go. And we were able to remove the first degree terms. So we just need now to transpose this, and the equation now becomes x prime squared plus y prime squared equals 16. An equation in center radius form, whose center is at the new origin for negative 3. Because if this is the case, then hk, quote unquote, is at 0. So that is translation of axis.